I went ahead and added a bunch of labels to all of these YAMLs that I have. And what I've done is I've said kubectl apply and then the folder in here. So YAMLs. So this is the folder YAMLs. And if you are inside of YAMLs, for example, so cd and then YAMLs, you can say the same thing. So apply and then dot. And you can see that nothing has changed. So everything is unchanged. So now if I do a kubectl and then get pods, for example, and then show labels. And by the way, I've just done this for deployments, but you can add labels to pretty much any resource that you have. So if I press enter, and there we go. So you can see that we have a bunch of labels in here. So app customer, department engineering, and then environment test, and then pod. So this is actually added for you. And I'm going to explain this in a second. And then tier backend. And then we have some where they belong to front end, such as, so we have the front end in here. So this one here, you can see that the tier is front end in here, and they all belong to engineering, but maybe you could have department, for example, let me think, for example, marketing, or machine learning, something like that, you know. It's completely up to you how you want to organize your labels. So now what I want to show you is label selectors. So selectors are used to filter Kubernetes object based on a set of labels. And first, let me show you exactly how we use it with kubectl. But then you'll see that, for example, replica sets, deployment services, they all use selectors. So basically a selector uses a simple Boolean language that allows you to filter objects, right? So here, let's go ahead and say, for example, that we want to get all pods that are front end, right? So front end pods, for example. So here we can say kubectl and then get pods. There we go. And then dash dash and then selector equals, and here we basically pass the key value pair that we are interested, so the label that we are interested. So department equals, and then front end. Enter, and we actually have no labels or no pods with that label. So I think we have a mistake in here. Let me just scroll up for a second, and oh, actually yes, so it wasn't department, it was actually tier. So in here, so tier and then front end. Let me just clear the screen. There we go. So now you can see that we have two labels or two pods that came back to us, right? So these two are front end. So if we want to get, for example, backend, you change this to backend, and you can see that we have more, right? So you can also combine. So let's say that you want backend, and also you can say environment equals to, and then test, for example. And there you go. So only customer and order have those two labels. So hello world in here, basically these three hello worlds, they don't match this label right here. So if I go back for a second and then show you that, so this pod right here, the environment is dev right here. So I called it dev, and the same with deployment, so dev. So in here, if I change this to, so let's say dev, for example, you can see that we have these three right here. So this is pretty cool. So you can use the selector like this right here, or you can use match expressions, and that's what I'm going to teach you next. So just go ahead and play around with selectors. So you've seen basically here you can add as many as you want. So if I was to say, for example, lol, so this is all or nothing, right? So this is not an or, this is all or nothing. So if I press enter, you see that there is nothing that has these two labels, right? So all of these conditions have, oops, I didn't mean to do this, but all of these conditions have to be true in order for us to get a pod back. So play around with this dash selector and then the labels that you want, but this is really straightforward. But I'm going to show you the power of this in a second. Finally, if I clear the screen and if I run this exact same command, and in here, instead of saying dash selector, we can also say dash and then L, and we can remove basically these quotes around on both sides in here, just like this. And this is the exact same thing. So you can see that this is much neater. And if I say, for example, dev in here, there we go. You see that we have the exact same output. So you can use dash selector or dash L, which is the shorthand. If you have any questions, drop me a message. Next, let me go ahead and show you a different way that we can query objects.